Warp Tour is the first episode where Steven's character gets development when it comes to him being a little smarter. And when it comes to episodes before this, well, the Crystal Gems are trying to make Steven be unaware. It really feels like that this is taking the events of Steven being grounded a lot more legitimately when it comes to his relationships with the Crystal Gems. And this is before we get into the centered episodes of Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl. After doing one of the missions, Steven went out of the warp stream that he saw another warp stream that has someone in it that made him really suspicious, but the Crystal Gems try way too hard to convince them that there are no other people other than them using the warp streams. Whenever I'm in a Steven Universe mode, I will always watch this video from Warp Tour where the Crystal Gems are trying to prove to Steven that the warp pads are broken in one area, but at the same time, Steven is really thinking ahead on what's really going on because what he sees in his eyes, it didn't lie to him. Then again, when it comes to the Crystal Gems' defense, they were mostly aware that Steven's imagination just always gets in the way, and this is still in Season 1, well, Steven is a little joy-free, but since that he's looking at some things really seriously, and since this is before the finale, it really gave me the impression that the Crystal Gems are really doing what they can in order to prove to Steven that they're the only ones using the warp streams and no one else. But I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to Steven's defense, he's relatable because we've all been in this scenario where we see something that no one else is and no one else believes us. So just by seeing Steven going through this scenario of finding the creature or robot in order to prove to the Crystal Gems that he did saw something only for Garnet to pull him back into the warping stream to see the full truth of them all. It really is a moment between Steven and the Crystal Gems reconciling after this episode. But considering that there are minutes left, we've saved the best character that just by watching her in this episode, Peridot was a lot more different back then in comparison to how she was in the later seasons. Like, when I first watched this during my binge watch, I was mostly obsessed with it because I was mostly familiar with Peridot before I got into Steven Universe. So just by seeing this and seeing her first appearance was honestly good, and considering that her character was a lot more different than how she became later on, it really shows that the people who made this show were really focusing on her character a lot more in comparison to Lapis and Bismuth. But when it came to Steven's character in this along with the Crystal Gems, it's kind of similar to Joking Victim, but it has nothing to do with lying, and it's mainly Steven being in a handicap position, but done for the right reasons. Like, I really found this clip of Peridot's inventions or somethings, I know they have names, but I can't remember all the names, push Steven out of the warp stream, which leads to Steven into outer space or in the void where he's extremely cold. To tell you the truth, just seeing Garnet pulling him into the warp stream is honestly really good and really showing the development between Steven and the Crystal Gems. This is literally one of the only clips that I remember the most and we watched the most, along with Steven lashing out at the Crystal Gems. Like, this just shows that the development is increasing a lot more, and even though I've already talked about the Garnet episode last August, keep in mind there are still the Amethyst and Pearl episodes that I'm eager to talk about sooner in this marathon. This episode is one of the most underrated episodes, especially with the debut of Peridot herself. And to tell you the truth, when I get into her episodes, I did say that she was the best character, but mainly from the Phantom's point of view. Believe me, once I rewatch those episodes centering around Peridot, my perspective could change, but at the same time, we haven't gotten there yet, and there are still several more episodes from Season 1 to finish before we head into Season 2. With the next episode that I'm going to be tackling today centers around Steven going through an obstacle course, which is the test of his abilities. I'm going to be really honest with you, thinking of how these four characters have known each other for a long time. After witnessing them from the first episode, which was in 2013 and this came out in 2015, there was obviously a reason onto why that this season has the most episodes, which is really difficult to believe, but at the same time, Adventure Time Season 5 had just about the same amount of episodes as Steven Universe Season 1, if I'm correct. Maybe it's mainly the fact that they just want to showcase of what they can do for that amount of episodes, and later on they're going to stick to 26 or less or more, but not the same amount as Season 1. So anyway, I'm giving this episode a 7.5 out of 10.